Hi everyone, we will be working today on LangGraph basics. So what we will be doing in this particular lecture is like we will be understanding the basics of LangGraphs. We understand the difference between LangGraph and LangChain. We try to understand a linear flow and we try to understand a DAG. We call it as directed acyclic graph, but it is a kind of cyclic graph. We will be understanding that. And even we try to understand basic commands of LangGraph, and even we try to build a small agentic AI thing with the help of LangGraph. And even we try to understand how exactly we can add a tool, we can add a memory, and even we try to understand how we can add a human in loop kind of LangGraph, or we can say agentic AI application. So we will be understanding about this in this particular lecture. See you in our coding.
So let's understand why one need to use LangGraphs. For example, LangGraphs is majorly used to build, for example, powerful and adaptable agentic AI applications. So what exactly agentic AI? So now there are two types of it. Generative AI major goal is if you are able to give one part of the data, it is able to start generating another part of the data. We know this, which is called generative AI. And agentic AI is where by using generative AI, systems are trying to act autonomous. So what does it mean by autonomous? So like without any human intervention, they are able to act on their own. So we are able to call it as agentic AI. But in order to build agentic AI, so there is a challenge. What is that? The very first one going to be they are behaving or they are making decisions on their own. So while they are making decisions on their own, they're going to be a drop in reliability. So there may not be a reliable thing. The reason, for example, go for an AI, you are asking it to book the flight tickets. So without your particular involvement, so there is a lack of reliability if you are trying to go for an agentic AI. Now, LangGraphs are helping us to make this agentic AI applications more reliable as well as more controllable. So with the help of the framework, so now this LangGraph contain various functions or approaches which can help us so to maintain the reliability of our agent, to improve the controllability of our agent, and not only that, so now there are various other benefits as well. So one going to be, we call it as human in loop kind of approach. What does it mean by human in loop kind of approaches? So while it is trying to make an action autonomously, it is able to post it for a human approval. So once upon a human approval, it is able to complete that particular activity in an autonomous way. So now based on that, we are able to improve the reliability as well as we are able to improve the controllability. And when it comes to, so this LangGraphs, there are two types. So one is LangChains, like whenever you are building any generative AI applications, we will be relying on LangChain. So LangChain going to work on a linear workflow. What does it mean by linear workflow? You are defining the things like 1, 2, 3, you are defining various steps. So now, or we are able to call it as in layman terminology, in LangChains, you are doing it, you are defining how to do it and what to do it. You are defining it in LangChain. And in LangGraph, you are doing it when to do it. You are obviously defining when to do. So in your LangGraph. So LangGraph major purpose is in order to make. So now your goal is not just to work in a linear way. So like in order to work in an acyclic way. So there are certain stages which you need to do in order to complete an activity. So you need to go across various looping. We call it as cyclic. There are chances of being acyclic. So that's the reason in LangGraph, we are able to use an approach called as DAG, directed acyclic graph. So what is exactly meant by directed? So now this is your state, the input. So it is moving from one point to the another point. So there is a direction to it. Hey, you need to move from this direction to the another direction. So now what exactly meant by acyclic? So acyclic means, so it is going from point A to point B or point C. It is going and it is stopping there. So we are able to call it as acyclic. So it is not happening in a loop. We call it as acyclic. So LangGraph is supporting both acyclic, it is not doing it on a loop, as well as the LangGraph going to support even cyclic approach as well. Now the LangGraph purpose is, so when to do it. So now, okay, you have an LLM model, or you got a chatbot, or you got a Python code, or you got a particular what is that, search engine. So when I need to do them, so that when to do it is defined in your LangGraph. We call it as orchestration, and how to do it and what to do is defined in your LangChain in simple lines. Now, when we are trying to get into LangGraph, for example, if I'm getting into the practicality of it, so you need to use a very simple, means like you need to use Python for it. And while you're using Python, you need to install two libraries. One is LangGraph and another one going to be your LangSmith. The purpose of LangSmith is in order to visualize your particular entire definitions or the flow you defined it. In order to visualize it, we are able to use LangSmith. And LangGraph, yes, we know that. So in order to define your agentic AI applications, we are able to rely on our LangGraph. And whatever the means like tutorial I'm doing it, it depends upon this particular documentation. Now basically, if you are able to browse this LangGraph documentation, there they mention how to build a chatbot, how to add tools, how to add a human in loop, memory, and all that, etc elements. Now whenever a new library comes in, we do the same approach. We try to learn it with the help of this documentation and we try to understand it. Now we are installing these libraries, and apart from this library, you need to install one more library, which is called as pip install LangChain OpenAI. So this is another library. In order to, the reason is in order to connect a chatbot, so you need to have your LLM model. So from where you are taking that LLM model, I'm taking it from OpenAI. For that reason, I'm taking LangChain OpenAI, another library which you need to install. So once upon installing those libraries, now I'm trying to use or import certain functions, or we are able to call, this, the very simple idea of importing a library. I'm importing annotated function from typing, and even I'm importing typed dictionary. So the purpose of annotated and typed dictionary is, so now whenever you are trying to provide, now see this, I want to define the state. So now before I'm explaining this particular breakdown, so let's understand three terminologies in LangGraph. So LangGraph comprises of three divisions. One going to be the state. So what exactly the current state of it? So like what I'm doing, so like it's not about the task, it's about the state. Okay, now I'm starting a particular activity, so that going to be your state. And now from that state, you are trying to point it out to a particular node. So now the node is nothing but a particular action, or we can say a Python function. So now your node is nothing but it's a kind of an action which you are trying to perform. And after this particular node, there is an edge. The purpose of an edge is it going to provide a direction. So from one state to another state. So it is saying, hey, from this state you need to go to a chatbot. So this is called as an edge. So now you are starting with a state, and each particular node going to give us a updated state. So what exactly I have done here? Okay, now I started. Okay, next I'm collecting the message, or I'm doing a Python function. So what exactly you are doing, that is your state. And then, so now the node is called as a Python function. So nodes are nothing but your Python functions. So you're connecting this Python functions with the help of edges, and each Python function going to have a particular state. So like what exactly happened, or what exactly the data happening, or what data is coming out, or what data is flowing in. So like this kind of update we are able to get it with the help of state. Now what exactly this state contains? It contains two different segments. So now whenever I want to start with any of my LangGraph, I want to start defining the state. So in order to define the state, I'm using a function from LangGraph called as state graph. So by using the state graph, I'm able to define the particular state of my particular LangGraph. That's what I'm doing it. Now what exactly this state contains? This state need to be the input of this. So now what exactly you are trying to feed inside this particular state? You are feeding a typed dictionary. So what exactly meant by a typed dictionary? In simple lines, so it going to let you expect a key and a value type of value. So whenever you are trying to feed a message, so it going to expect, or we are able to get a dictionary as an outcome. We are able to get the particular key, and we are able to get the values as a particular outcome. So for that reason, I'm defining typed dictionary. And then we are using annotated. The reason is whenever I'm trying to go, so now the goal of a state is not just to refresh every time. The goal is not just to rewrite every time. So like what exactly, maybe like I started to the office. The state is I'm in a fresh mood. Maybe that's the state. And after coming to maybe at a after the lunchtime, maybe I'm a bit tired. So the state is changing to tired. So now what exactly happening? I want to record the state at the morning, at the break, or whatever the different time slots we have. We want to record all that particular states. The goal is not just to rewrite everything, but to append it. So in order to append, for example, to do it, we are using a message, or we are using a function called as annotated. By using this annotated, whenever a new message is getting, we are able to add it, or we are able to append it to our particular data. Instead of rewriting it, or instead of refreshing everything, we are trying to rewrite it. So this add message going to be, most likely we can call it as a metadata. So now the purpose of a metadata is, it's not just it, so it's a, we can say, like, it's more like an update, or it's more like an instruction. So what exactly the state of the mission? So in order to understand it, we are trying to use this add messages, which going to be your metadata. Now I'm defining the particular state. After defining the state, now this is related to graph builder. So within this graph builder, you have a state that is the starting point. And now I want to feed this state to a particular node. So now what is a node here? We want to use an LLM, a very simple LLM. I want to use it. So for that reason, I'm just calling LangChain. So now you're seeing now what to do. If I want to create a chatbot, yes, I want to go to LangChain. If I want to orchestrate it, I'm using LangGraph. So now here I want to use a chatbot. So like I'm calling LangChain chat models. I'm initiating a chat model. I'm giving my API key, and I'm initiating GPT 4.1. So now this is my LLM model. Now this LLM model need to be defined as a node. So in order to define as a node, so we learned it. So what is that? We want to define a Python function. So define chatbot. So you are defining the state, and you are trying to return a message. So now whenever you are trying to say state message, so whenever your user is asking a particular question, it is able to provide a response. That is called message. So now we are trying to add this particular node even into the graph builder. So like what we are doing, we defined the state, and now you got a graph builder. Now we got a node, we got a state. Now we want to connect them. So in order to connect them, you need to have the edges. So now graph builder.add edge, I want to start a chatbot, and graph builder.add edge chatbot end. So like this is what the complete flow I designed it. Now what we are trying to do, I want to run the entire graph builder. So if in order to run the entire, all of them, in order to synchronize them and in order to run them, so like you need to use the command compile. So like by using this compile graph, so like now what exactly, if I want to get a message, I don't want to run in a regular LangChain, what we do, just like you call that LLM.info. If you just say that, you are able to trigger it. Now what we are doing is, instead of just calling that LLM model, now you defined a graph, or you orchestrated everything. Now in order to get a message, you want to run a graph. So here graph.stream, in order to get a message as a stream. So the role user, I'm the one who is using, what is the message you are asking? Hi. So it is able to give a message, hello, how can I help you? Or I'm just saying, hey, may you know what is genai, for example. When I pass this message, it is able to provide about what is generative AI. That's what it is trying to print with the help of this graph.stream. It's using this GPT 4.1, and it is able to feed that particular message. Genai stands for generative artificial intelligence, blah blah blah, whatever it is. Now if I want to visualize that particular graph, so what I'm doing, simply I'm using ipython.display. So now graph.getGraph. So by using this, you are able to get the graph of it. So how you designed the entire architecture, you are able to see the structure of this particular graph you designed it. So now what we do, in order to build an agentic AI, now agentic AI is a combination of LLM models plus various Python functions to do a particular activity. Now you are taking all of this LLM models and various Python functions, you are connecting them so in a graph, so that, or in a DAG approach, so that it is able to perform an activity. The goal is not just to give a message. The goal is to do an activity. So now when you are able to connect multiple agents, we are able to call it as multi-system agent. Into the same agent, if we are able to provide a human-in-loop approach, we are able to build again a same LangGraph. We will be seeing in our next lecture, where I will be showcasing how we can build a human-in-loop kind of, chatbot. So like there we can say agentic AI approach. There you will be understanding how we can do that. Now within this LangGraph, it's not just about your only building a simple LLM. You can add a memory. Again, within memory, you have types. You have a short-term memory, you got a long-term memory. So you are able to add the tools. to perform an activity. You can connect it with various softwares or APIs. So like we will be doing that large scale application in our upcoming lectures. I hope you got a clear understanding about it. See you in our next video.